Welcome back to Old School Sports and our Out of the Park Baseball 24 playthrough of the Buffalo Wings. And it has been a successful 2045 season for the Buffalo Wings thus far. As we sit here on August 1st, just past the trade deadline, we've got a 4-game lead on the Nationals for the NL East title. And we have a 1-game lead on the Cleveland Guardians for the best record in baseball. So we performed pretty well given that we had some pretty significant injuries in the first half of the season. And we're almost through them at this point. Damani Essien, who was slated to be our starting shortstop after a big trade in the offseason, 4 days left recovering from that broken bone in his elbow. And then he should be ready to begin a rehab assignment since he's been out since, I believe, March 28th. So he's going to need a little time to get up to speed, but hopefully we'll be back soon. We did make a few trades at the trade deadline, brought on some excellent relievers, David Rivera for his second stint in Buffalo, and Chris McClintock. Right now, Joe Scott remains our closer, but it's nice to have a guy like McClintock on board in case Scott continues to struggle this year. And we also made a couple of trades for position players. We brought on Luis Ortega from the Phillies, probably the premier offensive catcher in baseball over the past decade. He was in the final year of a $54 million contract. The Phillies were way out of it, so they were willing to deal him. And eventually he was willing to waive his no-trade clause. And then we also traded for the veterans shortstop, Jaheim Lawal. Gives us a little bit of insurance if Essien doesn't come back as good as we think he should be, or if we have some other injury issues. So we are definitely a win-now team. The goal as we sit here on August 1st is to get to the playoffs healthy and to get to the playoffs with the best record in baseball. NL East crown alone is not going to be sufficient this year. We've got the best record in baseball today. We've got Essien coming back soon. We've just bolstered the team with an excellent catcher, a good infielder, and 2 excellent relievers. There's no excuses for us not getting the job done over the next couple of months as we finish up this 2045 regular season. And we've got the month of August off to a solid start. Won the last 2 games in the homestand against the Giants, and then we just shut out Washington 11-0 yesterday. Essien is back and healthy, so we're going to probably rehab him in Albany for about a week before making a move on him. Get an updated scouting report, let him shake some of the rust off from the fact that he hasn't played baseball in about 4 months at this point. And hopefully we can have him back in the lineup about the middle of the month. It'll require some difficult conversations with the player who's demoted, which will most likely be Danny Ferguson or Mike Whitehead. But whoever we end up demoting will likely be back a couple weeks later on September 1st. We will check in on the player here at the start of the episode that I know many of you are most interested in, Dashawn Seifu, and very limited action for him this year, hitting .238 in 105 at-bats, 4 doubles, 1 triple, and 5 steals so far, 76 WRC plus, just barely above replacement level this year. Honestly, we thought he might be a bit more productive this year in a full-time platoon role, playing only against left-handed pitching. Last year, he was a regular for the first couple months of the season before we moved him to playing against left-handers only. And he hit just 200-ish against righties last year, hit close to 300, or I think actually a little over 300 against lefties last year. Thought we might get better than a 238 average out of him this year, but with that 243 and right now 238 average, his final 2 years in the majors, kind of having a Mickey Mantle-esque finish, at least in terms of his batting averages. As we sit here on August 5th, Seifu 1 triple away from 700, 3 doubles away, or one double away from 700, 3 triples away from 200, and 3 steals away from 1,300. My hunch is he'll get another double. He'll probably get another 3 steals. I would be very surprised if he becomes one of the few major leaguers in history to get to 200 triples, though, given his lack of effectiveness and, even more importantly, his lack of playing time at this point. And as we get ready to likely make a move to bring Damani Essien up a couple weeks into the month of August, we lost the last 2 at Washington, which was not optimal given that they're the team that's chasing us. But then we did take 2 out of 3 against Montreal before sweeping the Phillies at home. So we are still playing pretty well. The issue is the Nationals just won't lose. They've won 9 in a row at this point, closed the gap to 1 game on us. We are still holding on to the NL East, and we are still just by half a game over Cleveland, holding on to the best record in baseball. But things have gotten much more competitive with the Nationals surging in the standings, including taking 2 out of 3 against us in our most recent series against them. Taking a look at the league leaders here, no surprise that there's no batters among the league leaders. We had 3 All-Stars this past year, but they were all pitchers. Jim Lance, although he was not named an All-Star, is making a real strong case to earn the first Cy Young Award of his career, leading the National League with a 2 ERA, leading the National League with 15 wins, and leading the National League with a 4.7 pitcher WAR at this point. And with Essien back, we surprised ourselves a little bit. We sent the veteran Mike Whitehead down to AAA. We kept up the 24-year-old Danny Ferguson because he's been hitting better of late. He's got the batting average up to 234, 23 doubles and 11 homers and 394 at-bats, and his WRC plus is up to 95 at this point. So we're actually going to keep him in the lineup as our everyday third baseman, and with the left-handed hitting Essien and the right-handed hitting Lawal, we're actually going to go to a platoon at shortstop for the time being, give Essien some time to hopefully get back to his previous ways. He was not good in Albany, 7 for 29. 6 of the hits were singles, so a 241 batting average and a 38 WRC plus. But we really have him around for his glove. Anything he happens to give us offensively is a bonus. So we'll see what he can do playing every day now, but feel like we are pretty strong defensively up the middle now with Essien at short or Lawal at short, Ramiro Medina at second, and of course Ishmael Velasco in center field. Ortega is in a platoon situation playing against right-handed pitching, given that he's older and fragile. And Juan Ramirez is a right-handed hitter. We're playing Ramirez catcher against left-handed pitching regularly. And we've got some good news and bad news here as we head into the final 10 days of August. Team is still playing well. You can see we don't have much money available now, and that's because we did end up signing our impossible-to-sign 5th-round pick, Davis Crawford. Ended up needing to go to $9.25 million to get him signed, but we did get him signed. So that soaks up a good chunk of the money that we had available and makes me feel a bit better about the fact with many of those trades that we made, we did have their previous teams retain a chunk of their contracts, left us more than enough to go get another player signed for our minor league system. So that is good news. We've also been playing pretty well over the past week. We took 2 out of 3 at Kansas City, and then I guess not so well in this last series. We lost 2 out of 3 at home against Toronto. But when I say we're playing well, it's more that we've expanded the lead to the Nationals to a couple of games at this point. We are a game better than them in our last 10. 77-46 record, still up only half a game on the Guardians for the best record in baseball. And if you look now, the Guardians, our Buffalo Wings, the Nationals, and the Royals are all in a very tight race, 2.5 games separating those 4 teams for the best record in baseball. Whoever ends up losing the NL East out of our Wings and the Nationals is going to be the unlucky loser, because they're going to end up a wild card despite potentially having the second best record in all of baseball. The bad news now is that Devontae Essien is banged up again, a sprained knee. It's going to have a moderate impact on his running, but we just decided to be conservative and put him on to the IL. Part of the reason we picked up Lawal was we just weren't sure whether at 32 years old, coming off of a serious injury, whether Essien would be able to remain healthy. Now, clearly, you wouldn't think that a sprained knee has much to do with a broken bone in his elbow, but you never know. He was good in the first 4 games he played in Buffalo, 5 for 13 with a double, 4 ribbies, 138 WRC plus. Admittedly, a very small sample size, but hopefully we'll have him back for September. Can hopefully get him, 20, 25 games played before we get to the playoffs and have him be as sharp as ever for our 18th consecutive playoff appearance. And we've made it to September roster expansion. The team continuing to play pretty well. We've expanded the lead over the Nationals to 4 games in the NL East, 83-50 record. We are now a game and a half behind the Guardians for the best record in baseball. So that is not optimal, but it is what it is. We're playing well. Hopefully we can continue playing well over the final month of the season. Taking a look at the team statistics, first in the National League in runs scored, first in the National League in runs allowed. We're leading almost every pitching category, and we're in the top handful of almost every batting category. Good defense, good on the base paths. We've had a 600 or better winning percentage every month of the year, except for May, when we somewhat inexplicably were only a 500 team. And at 83-50, we've actually gotten incredibly unlikely. Pythagorean expectations are that we should be 7 games better than we are at 90-43. Part of that is a 18-23 record in 1-run games. But the team is doing very well as we sit here on September 1st. NL Rookie of the Month was Jim Coles, 4-0 with a 2.31 ERA for the season, 13-4 with a 3.01 ERA. So Coles, former first-round draft pick 4 years ago out of Louisiana Tech, has been very impressive in his first full season in the majors. With a month to go in the season, we'll check in. Looks like Danny Ferguson, day-to-day for 4 days, not the end of the world, especially with roster expansion coming. But we will check in on Dashawn Seifu, and it looks like he's gotten some doubles, and it looks like he's stolen another base. So as we sit here on September 1st, he does have over 700 doubles now, 2 stolen bases away from 1,300 for his career. The batting average just 232 and a 69 WRC plus. He's now below replacement level. The decision with Seifu, honestly, is going to be whether or not we actually play him in the playoffs. Wanted him to have the fairy tale ending last year when he went out with a championship, and he decided he wanted to come back for 1 more year. As we've talked about in previous episodes, if he doesn't retire after this season on his own, we will manually retire him following his 20th Major League season here to avoid him becoming a OOTP nomad. But I think the right decision is probably to not play him in the playoffs. And it's probably not to even have him on the playoff roster. I guess I could certainly argue that he still has the speed and especially the base running and stolen base instincts to be a useful pinch runner, and he is still the captain of our team, both in terms of his personality class and in terms of being the captain of the team if naming captains was something that we did in OOTP. So I tend to think I'll probably have him on the roster, but the question is whether or not I will even be playing him against left-handed pitching in the playoffs. But he needs 2 more stolen bases to get to 1,300 for his career. Clearly, he is easily second overall to Ricky Henderson, but still more than 100 bases away from Ricky. So he will not be catching the Man of Steel. And as September begins, Lance with a 16-4 record and a 1.98 ERA is probably maybe 4 more really good starts away from likely clinching the first Cy Young Award of his career. Can see the starting rotation has been excellent this year. Joe Scott pitching a bit better of late. Auclair remains excellent. Ruckel, fantastic. He was named an all-star this year. Auclair, Ruckel, and the veteran Barajas were our 3 all-stars among our pitchers. McClintock's been fine since he came over. David Rivera has been better for us with a 1.84 ERA than he was in Colorado. And our September call-ups this year are very boring because with all the injuries we had early in the year and then those trades that we made, not really bringing up a ton of youth. We're basically just bringing back guys who had been on the major league roster earlier this season. So both Chris Powers and Mike Roberts called back up. They both had difficult performances in about 40 combined innings at the major league level this year. But when I look at their talent, I think they should be better than they have been. They both performed well in Albany. So we will give those 2 gentlemen the opportunity to get a little bit of playing time. Playing as far as position players, Steve Nickel, the utility infielder, is back. He hit 250 with Buffalo this year, went down to Albany where he struggled to hit 200. His spot could be in jeopardy once Essien is healthy and well in a few days, but we'll give Nickel another few days at the major leagues. And then Juan Larios was with us for a good chunk of the year and performed well. Just got caught in a numbers game when we made some trades, but he went down to Albany, hit 304 with 8 homers and 24 ribbies and 148 at-bats, put up a 123 WRC plus, and he'll be another left-handed bat off of our bench for these final few weeks of the season. So we have young talent that's close in Albany, but we're going with a little bit more experience right now, given that we're trying to hold on to the best record in baseball, or actually we're trying to get back past Cleveland for the best record in baseball, and we're playing to win it all this year. Next year will be for some of the young prospects, both on the mound and in the outfield, to be making their debut. So a little bit boring with the September call-ups this year. Albany actually has a chance of getting into the playoffs, into the International League. I think there's a little over a week left in the season. So between the week left in the season and the potential for the playoffs, that'll give the younger guys who are down there an opportunity to still get hopefully another couple weeks of action, even though they didn't get called up to the majors this year. And we started off the month of September taking 2 out of 3 on the road at the Angels. And some more good news as far as honors. Danny Ferguson continues to really have a resurgent second half. Was just named National League Player of the Week. Hit 600 with 2 homers and 8 ribbies over the past week. And the young third baseman has really turned his season around. 115 WRC plus on the year now. 15 homers, 78 ribbies. Jumping into his batting splits a little. You can see he hit a .188 in April, .218 in May, and .213 in June. But since then, he's been excellent with a 325 average in July, 366 in August, and 500 here in September to cap off the Player of the Week awards. So glad we kind of stuck with him. I think he's still hopefully a big part of our future because he is a guy that we signed to a long-term contract. Hopefully he will prove to be a pretty useful infielder for us in the coming years. And another good week for the Buffalo Wings in the books. Took 2 out of 3 at home against Texas, and then took 2 out of 3 at home against St. Louis. Heading on for a long road trip now for the next 2 weeks. We're going to be at the Diamondbacks, at the Rockies, at the Phillies, and then at Miami. And then we will have a homestand, 4 games against Washington, which could be big for the division, and then 3 games against the Mets to finish up the season. So heading into the home stretch on this 2045 season, 4 games up on Washington. We do have the best record in baseball right now at 89-53. We're a game and a half above Cleveland at this point. But as I said, with a 2-week road trip ahead of us right now, followed by 4 games against the Nationals when we do get back home. Although the magic number is 17, I have a tendency to think that that series with the Nationals is going to end up being pretty important. Hopefully we can come back from that final road trip with a winning record overall. If we're able to do that, it should mean that we'll have at least a 2 or 3 game lead when we begin that penultimate series of the year against Washington. And as we sit here on Monday, September 11th, Lance continues to lead the National League with 17 wins, continues to lead the National League with a 1.96 ERA, and continues to lead the National League with a 6.1 player WAR. But he's got a couple of guys right behind him in terms of wins, including our own Chris Lott, and Marquise Bethea is very close to him in ERA. So while it looks like he's got a shot at winning 2/3 of the pitching Triple Crown, it wouldn't be a shock if he doesn't end up leading the league in any of those categories when all is said and done. Hopefully another 3 or 4 good starts out of him to potentially clinch a Cy Young award. And good news for the Buffalo Wings here a week later. We've clinched our record extending 18th consecutive playoff berth. Still battling for the National League East. Taking a look at how the last week went. We did take 2 out of 3 on the road in Arizona, but then we did lose 2 out of 3 in Colorado. So 500 record for the week. The goal is certainly to go 4-3 on the road against Philadelphia in Miami over the next week. Philadelphia is eliminated from the playoffs right now, and Miami pretty close to eliminated, having lost 5 in a row. So certainly would hope that we can take advantage of those less highly regarded teams to put ourselves in a pretty good position to win the division. Magic number down to 10. We've got a 5-game lead on the Nationals, 92-56 record, half a game above the Guardians, who are the only other team that's clinched a playoff spot at this point for the best record in baseball. Lance had a bit of a rough outing, it looks like, but still leading the league with a 2.18 ERA and 17 wins. His pitcher WAR has dipped to 5.9, so a tough outing, guessing probably in Colorado for Lance. We'll see if playing the Phillies and the Marlins over this next week gives us an opportunity to get closer to that magic number of 10, and also hopefully get at least one really good outing from Lance against those less regarded teams. Not sure that Leslie is a word. I think it's a name. And the final week of this last road stand has gone reasonably well on the field. We took 3 out of 4 at Philadelphia before losing the first game in Miami. 2 left there. Unfortunately, got some tough news for a team that's hoping to win it all this year. Damani Essian's injury-plagued year continues. Intercostal strain, he's going to be out for about 5 weeks. So that probably means that the guy who was supposed to be our Gold Glove shortstop this year isn't going to be available for the playoffs. And he ends up on the year hitting a glittering 326 with a fantastic 133 WRC plus. The issue is that he only did it over the course of 43 at-bats. So the fact that we made that type of insurance trade for Jaheim Lawal makes me feel a little better at this point. Certainly not optimal to not have Essien this year for the playoffs. Not going to be the way that we wrote it up, but maybe Lawal will be able to be a hero in his absence. And I do, as we talked about several episodes ago, Essien has a player option for next year. I thought he would probably opt out of it with all of the injuries he's had. There's a chance that he'll opt into it. But also having, even if he doesn't opt into it, the fact that we do have Lawal and Essien both under contract right now will mean that we can probably try to get at least one of them back for next year as our starting shortstop. Fuchs, I still think, is our shortstop of the future, but he's got a lot of work to do offensively. So he spent the entire year in Double-A Utica, didn't even promote him to Triple-A. So I feel like we're going to need at least one of these guys next year. If Essien opts in, that's probably the answer. If Essien opts out, though, at least when this season is over, we've got 2 accomplished major league shortstops, and we can hopefully figure out which one we can sign for the shortest amount of time to continue being our bridge to Josh Fuchs. But pretty disappointing that Essien now, with his 3rd injury of the year, is likely done for the season. I guess in theory he could be back for a World Series if we make it that far, but certainly not going to count on him at this point. And before we get ready for those final 2 games with the Marlins, check in on the standings. We're 5 games up on the Nationals, magic number down to 5. So we certainly won't clinch even if we win both of our next games and they lose both of theirs. But there's certainly a good chance that we should be able to clinch the NL East before that final series at home against the Mets. And at 95 and 58, we're a game and a half up on the Guardians for the best record in baseball. Lance continues to lead the National League in ERA, now tied for the league lead in wins, and a very small advantage for pitcher WAR, leading the league in that category. We will also check in on our good friend Dashawn Seifu, and still at 7 stolen bases on the year. So as we head into the final 9 games of the season, he is still 1 stolen base away from 1,300 for his career. I guess the silver lining is that the injury to Essien probably increases the probability that Seifu will make the postseason roster, and probably increases the chance that he'll actually play a bit if he's on the roster with Essien out of there. But certainly still no guarantees that he's even going to be on the 26-man for the playoffs. And we only ended up winning 1 out of 3 in Miami, but we did go 4-3 in those last 7 games on the road trip. So overall, the road trip was 7-6. So we did end up above 500 on the road trip, which was our goal. And importantly, in terms of individual honors, the 1-0 victory was a game that Lance pitched. So he got his league-leading 18th win and lowered his ERA to 2.08. Looks like he will have one more game, probably in the final game of the series against Washington, before he turns his attention to the playoffs. As we get ready for the final homestand of the season, we're up 5 games on the Nationals, so they could close the gap to us to only 1 game if they sweep that series. But our magic number is only 3, so I certainly would hope that we could clinch against the Nationals. But even if we don't clinch, if we get just one victory, it's going to be real hard for them to get past us. And we got a win in game one, another shutout victory, 6-0. Chris Lott increases his record to 17-10 with a 3.96 ERA. He's been really good this year as well. McClintock's ERA with us is down to 1.88, and Rivera's is down to 1.08. So both of the relievers that we added have really helped stabilize the bullpen, and our magic number at this point is down to 1. So hopefully we can get the division clinched, and then we will turn our full attention to the Guardians. We've got a 1.5 game lead on them for the best record in all of baseball. As soon as we clinch the NL East, that will clinch the best record in the National League for us. And we've made it easy on ourselves, 10-2 victory over Washington today. So the NL East is clinched. The best record in the National League is clinched. Still up a 1.5 games on the Guardians for the best record in baseball. We're going to try to play things straight until we have that clinched. Would love to give Seifu a little bit of playing time the final week of the season, particularly at home. But don't want to take anything for granted. Taking a look at Mr. Seifu, he's still lingering at 7 stolen bases, batting average down to 227 on the year. We do have lefties the next couple days, so he's going to be in the lineup anyways against our old buddy Juan Estrada, and then Mr. White for the Nationals. So perhaps Seifu will be able to get that 1,300th stolen base one of the next couple of games against the Nationals in front of the home fans in Buffalo. And we ended up splitting the final 2 games with Washington, so we took the series 3-1. Seifu did not do much of anything, 0 for 4 with a couple of strikeouts and a couple of runners left on base in the victory. And then in the loss yesterday, 0 for 3 with a strikeout, batting average down to 218. He did not steal any bases for us. So 3 games left in the season, and we are 2 games up on the Guardians for the best record in baseball. So if we get a W today, that'll clinch us at least a tie, and if they happen to lose, that will mean that we can potentially play Seifu the last couple games of the year without it having any significant risks, because we won't really be playing for anything else. So hopefully we get the W today. Hopefully Cleveland loses, and then we can give Seifu a little playing time and rest some other players. And we did get the W to get to 100 wins, and Cleveland did lose. So we've got everything that we can possibly have clinched at this point clinched. Another National League East title, 18th consecutive playoff berth, and the best record in baseball all clinched at this point. So 2 games left against the Mets, and we will ensure that Mr. Seifu is in the starting lineup for both of them as he tries to get one more stolen base to get to 1,300 for his career. And we lost game 161 to the Mets 6-3, but Seifu finally did get a hit and scored a run. He was 1 for 2, also walked. So Mr. Seifu was on base twice before Juan Larios pinch hit for him, and Seifu did get his 8th stolen base of the season. So Dashawn Seifu will finish his career with at least 1,300 stolen bases. We'll see if he can get perhaps one more tomorrow, but there were a lot of round numbers he was looking for this year, and he happened to get to most of them. He passed 3,200 hits, passed 700 homers, and has gotten to exactly 900 ribbies and 1,300 steals, likely to end up three triples short of 200 for his future Hall of Fame career. And we lost the final game of the season to the Mets 10-6 in extra innings. So not necessarily loving that we lost our last two games of the year, but we'll have some time off before the NLDS begins. Seifu finishes strong, 2 for 3 with 2 runs scored today. And he actually stole 2 more bases to get to 10 on the season. So congratulations to Seifu on what may be the end of a exceptional career, 1,302 steals, and gets him to double digits in stolen bases for a 19th consecutive year. And for the first time in his long and distinguished career, he was actually perfect running 10 for 10 in steals this year. That said, he still ended up hitting only 228, 63 WRC plus, and was below replacement level. So I think there definitely is still a serious debate that I'll be having with myself, and I'm sure some of you will opine on, as to whether he should be on the postseason roster and as to whether he should be in the lineup against left-handed pitchers on the postseason roster. He definitely will not be in the lineup against right-handed pitchers on the postseason roster, despite his strong play these past 2 games of the year against right-handed pitching. And when all was said and done, we ended up winning the National League East by 8 games over the Nationals. The Giants actually ended up closer to us for the best record in the best record in the National League. They were 7 behind us, and we ended up beating the Guardians by 2 games for the best record in baseball. So we will have home field advantage in the playoffs for as long as our team is in the playoffs. Jim Lance ended up leading the National League with a 2.02 ERA. He ended up tied for the National League lead with 18 wins, and he ended up tied for the National League lead with a 6.7 WAR. So he should be a pretty strong competitor for a Cy Young Award, but we'll find that out in about a month and a half. Right now our attention turns to the playoffs, and hopefully we'll be able to get a repeat out of our Buffalo Wings, which is something that we have not yet done in this playthrough. And before we finish up the episode and start preparing for the playoffs, I will take a look at how a few of the players that we added at the trade deadline and throughout the season performed. Chris McClintock did a nice job for us. 38 strikeouts in 25 and a third innings with a 1.78 ERA. He was fantastic working out of the bullpen. And David Rivera was perhaps even better with a 0.96 ERA over 28 innings pitched for us. So those 2 guys definitely fortified our bullpen. Joe Scott, with the pressure from having those guys, pitched a lot better over the last couple months of the season. Cut his ERA to 3.58, Sierra of 2.74, still less than a win above replacement for the year, so it was not a vintage Joe Scott season. But taking a look at his pitching splits, you can see he had a pretty rough year through July with 466, 375, 540, and 4.66 ERAs. Once we added those guys to pressure his spot as the closer a bit, he put up a 2.08 ERA with 5 saves in August, and was even better with a 1.32 ERA and a season best 9 saves for the month of September. So Scott finished off the year pretty well for us. Taking a look at some of our new position players that we added, the catcher Luis Ortega hit just 247, but that was kind of what we expected at this point as a guy who's almost 35 years old. But he did have 10 home runs in 146 at-bats, put up a 125 WRC plus. Definitely lengthened our batting order having a catcher with his talent in the middle of our lineup. Jaheim Lawal ended up hitting 277 in 130 at-bats, 82 WRC plus. he's really there for his glove at shortstop. Taking a look at the fielding stats with us, he was a bit above average defensive shortstop. Probably will continue to start more often than not in the playoffs with the injury to Essien. Jamari Habersham, who we picked up in that trade when we dumped out of Luis Comadran's contract, didn't hit as well for us as we had hoped. 261 average, did have 12 doubles and 6 homers and 222 at-bats. But a 79 WRC plus, not exactly what we were looking for from him. He's another guy whose ultimate spot in the lineup for the playoffs is probably going to be in a little bit of question because we've got a lot of different levers we can press. The left-handed hitting Edgar Canales, who hit 287 and 303 at-bats, could certainly be a guy who's in position to start against right-handers instead of Mr. Habersham. And we'll check in on what looks like our... I don't know what... as we just finished up the regular season, it looks like for some reason our manager doesn't think that our cleanup hitter and first baseman, Jim Reichert, should be on the playoff roster for some reason, which is a very curious decision. I wanted to check in and see exactly what Reichert did for us this year in his abbreviated rookie year. The batting average only 269, but can't complain about 13 doubles, 22 homers, and 62 runs batted in just 275 at-bats. Put up a 146 WRC plus and a 2.4 WAR. Given that he played less than half a year, probably not going to be quite enough to get him a Rookie of the Year award, but certainly if those numbers were prorated over a full season, would have to think he would be a pretty strong contender for that award. But we will be adjusting the playoff roster because the fact that our manager does not think Reichert should be on the playoff roster is a somewhat curious decision. And we will find out how the playoffs go in our next episode. Will Dashawn Seifu be on the playoff roster? It's a big question. The only thing I know for sure is that Reichert will be. And we'll find out if this Buffalo Wings franchise, which has earned 4 world championships so far, can finally get that elusive repeat this year. We're set up reasonably well. Best record in baseball, home field advantage throughout the playoffs. And although we'll be missing Essien, we've basically been missing him for almost the entire season. So hopefully the fact that we did make that trade for Lawal, and we also have Whitehead in the mix at shortstop, will ensure that we can get some competent play at that very vital defensive position over the next several weeks, and hopefully a long trip through the postseason. Until our next episode, thanks so much for watching, and hope you have a great day.